This is the story of those who migrated from the motherlands into the north, into Europe, thousands of years ago before the Ice Age. Who went to Europe? What did they do there? Who did they encounter? What calamities did befall them? And how did it change them? This is Messages from Behind the Glaciers. In this program, we will take you deep into the ancestral story of the Caucasoid. From a six-ether perspective, we will show the hidden bonds that connect us over oceans. We will delve into the reasons for his anger towards and his fear of the melanated peoples of the world. What went wrong? How could it happen that one people became so bitter that they destroyed and disseminated melanated civilizations all over the world? The information that you are about to be presented with is controversial, yet it is my deepest belief that it will benefit the healing of old wounds, bridge the gap between a separated humanity. To understand our present, we must understand the whole story. Your story and my story, their story and our story. My name is Yahya and I will be your host. Messages from Behind the Glaciers. Let us begin by stating we came from Kemet. We were black and we remember. From the far reaches of space and the pyramids of Atlantis, the Tower of Lemuria, a rule of the dominions of Amaxan, when the earth was still called Mu, long before any separations, long before the differences in ether DNA density, before our life in the caves of the Caucasus Mountains. We, a nation of ancestors encoded in your DNA, remember. We left Kemet, eons of your years ago, in search of new lands, with the intention to expand our civilization, to extend our reach, cultivate the lands, build in the north. We traveled over sea and land, settled in what you now call Greece, where we started building a civilization of knowledge based on the highest metaphysical principles. Soon, we populated the whole of the Mediterranean, Europe and the Middle East. We went further north, into the heartlands of Europe. We built temples and great pyramids, who are now buried under the mountains. A thriving society with a booming trade, universities, hospitals, a spiritual society, a people who were in touch with the inner workings of the spirit and the outerworldly manifestations of the flesh. They were still in communication with the gods. They still heard the voices of their ancestors. They were able to access the DNA ancestral memory without any effort, with the same ease as we would reach out a hand. They lived with the lives and memories and knowledge on a conscious level. So what is happening in this moment is that many of us here in the flesh, alive now during these times of change, are discovering the true scope of our multidimensional existence in relation to our space-time frame. We find ourselves in bodies which seem to contain ancient and coded information, coming from the inside of our being, turning out, pouring out, flashes of memories, recurring dreams of times and places we had never been before in this life, premonitions, unexplainable emotions. Do you sometimes meet people which seem so familiar that it almost seems as though they are not strangers at all. Our ancestors are reaching out from within. As we reconnect to the mothership, they are transmitting. We are being reactivated. The sky is just right. The time is now. It is happening. So, it came to be that we populated Europe. A great empire. Times do change though, and while living our lives, we suddenly found the Ice Age encroaching on us. The changes were at first gradually, but in time, before we knew it, we found ourselves trapped behind masses of ice and glaciers. A wall coming from the north, a wall coming from the south, and a wall coming from the east, encapsulating us with no way to reach behind the glaciers. There it is where we lost all contact with the homelands. The calamity came over us swiftly. Some made it back, but many were left behind the glacial walls. It was difficult to keep our level of civilization against the forces of nature. The cold came so fast in some places that it froze over cities with the people inside of them, and the ice grinded everything to dust. We tried to rebuild, survive, generate safety and heat for our women and children. The conditions, unbearable as they were, took the lives of many. We tried to build structures like the great stone circles with our last energy in the hope of contacting anyone who might be able to alleviate the suffering. Yet, even though the harsh environments, we survived in small settlements. But we were not alone. There were others there in the north and in the mountains. We knew about them from before, but never engaged in a prolonged communication. They seemed like savages to us. But now, through our new difficult circumstances, our encounters with them increased. It could be said that there was an alliance, fragile and with many barriers. Who were these humanoids in the north? How did they get there? We remember because we became them. there were others there in the north. They remember the birth of the first woman by the gods, who grafted them in their image. We remember how we grafted ourselves by a scientist or a group of geneticists known to you as Yakub, by splicing and selective procreation in a 6,000-year period. Wombs were made who birthed us, men and women. The gods lived among us and we served them for a long period as workers and warrior class, in a balance which was upset. There was an uprising, and as a punishment, from us was grafted the swine, which became our food as a curse for our rebellion against the gods. This was long before the Ice Age, when the earth was moo, Atlantis had not sunk, and Lemuria had not been ravaged. During the calamities of the flood, the gods put down their project and left us. We lived our lives in Europe, hidden in the north and the mountains, lost our connection. We knew about the existence of great people south from the stories told by our great mothers, people descendant of the gods. Our next contact was when they returned to us from Kemet, and we found them left in the harsh environments behind the glacier walls, where we had had our home for thousands of years in the caves and on the Mammoth Plains. Your civilization flourished. With the cataclysm of the cold climate change, they and we had become interdependent. A merging took place of those survivors and those indigenous. We became one, and we took our refuge for the ice in the north and the caves of the Caucasus Mountains. And one day, in a slow process, the glaciers melted. The first we encountered was Canaan, the son of Ham, cursed with leprosy. The albinos who fled the homelands came amongst us in the caves, taught us ourselves cleanliness. We developed. The melting of the glaciers had taken many generations. We had changed physically in such a way, changed mentally and spiritually. We found ourselves in the caves with animals, laying with the wolves, consuming the flesh of our own dead brothers, in utter darkness, hidden under the ground, while in the rest of the world, melanated civilizations flourished. We forgot everything. With the arrival of Canaan and his people, contact and our knowledge of the homelands was reactivated. We came out of the caves, building, evolving. The urge arose to expand, to search, to explore. Canaan had told us about a people from which he fled. We started our move towards Kemet, and when we finally met those of which we descended, we could not recognize and they could not recognize. We could not see when we saw each other, two branches of the same tree in a reuniting of long-lost siblings, separated for thousands of years, recognizing we did not. We had changed, lost all knowledge of our past, and in Kemet, no one had seen anyone from Europe for eons. The both groups did not recognize each other as human beings. Consequences have been recorded in history and our DNA coding. Traumatic consequences. which tore great wounds, left scars in our souls as a human family, which have yet to be healed fully. And even though healing is taking place, the memories of our screaming ancestors have to be honored. The stories must be told, piece by piece, rediscovered, reactivated and remembered.